Today I have on a guest that is, this is a topic I've been wanting to bring on. And my intention has ever since I started the podcast. So I'm super excited. And her name is Adriana Keefe. She is an award winning real estate dropout turned human design coach. That's the topic today, human design. And she's also a motivational speaker. And she can tell us a little bit more about her, but she, like me, works with high achievers and working to create more harmony in their life. And if you know anything about human design, she is a 4-6 manifesting generator, which also particularly drew me to her and I thought would be a really primo guest to talk about human design with me because I am the same. So perfect serendipity there. She also has a family with 3 children and has her own podcast called the No BS Human Design Podcast. So, Adriana, tell me anything that I missed that you want to be sure to point out and tell us maybe a little bit more about what led you into this, because I know you had a big shift in your life and your career.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I didn't realize that you had wanted someone with human design background since you started the podcast. That's a long time. So
Yeah.
I feel really honored. So thank you very much. Yeah, so do you want the short version of my story or like the full Monty? Because it could be in depth.
How about the medium?
Medium. Okay. All right. So this was just a few short years ago, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, like you said, I was an award winning realtor, and very much from the outside, it was like everything looked perfect, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people listening can understand that. Oh, life looks perfect. Why should I want more? Why should I be miserable? I had the career, I had the husband, a healthy child, another one on the way, and I was so stressed out. I was so burnt out. I originally went to school for veterinary, and when I couldn't pay my student debt and I couldn't even afford to live based on that pay, someone said, "Hey, you should get into real estate." And so I did. And at first, it was easy and it was flowing and it was natural, and the money was easy to make. So, anyone, especially the generation before me, my parents, they were like, "You can't leave that. You're sustaining good income and you're supporting your family and you're pregnant and all of that." And I really just burned out. I had a complete crash and burn. I was very much in that mindset of, what am I doing with my life? I had seen from my upbringing, I had seen my father battle depression my entire life. He was hospitalized at least once that I know of. I feel like there might have been more that I can kind of remember. And at one point, he had a complete crash, and just like I did, and left his career, good paying career, to take a much lower paying job where we then stopped traveling really as a family, didn't take vacations anymore. I was on what the kids would call welfare lunch at school. And that is what I saw to be true. You have to hustle and grind and risk your mental state in order to make money. And that was what I was doing in real estate. And unfortunately, even after all of that happened with my dad, there was a lot of people in my life who just kept saying, "Yeah, but you're doing it. You're doing a great thing. Like, just stick it out. It'll be good." Except for my dad. Of course, he was the one who I leaned on, and he said, "No matter what you do, do not chase the money. Do not chase the money. It does not give you happiness." And I'm so thankful that I had him say that to me, because I think that he's been one of my rocks in all of my life. I didn't really have a whole lot of support growing up, and he would have been there emotionally, I think, had he not been working all the time. And so I took that to heart, and I started what I now see is my spiritual journey. I grew up in a household that was Christian, Catholic. Honestly, I don't even know the differences because religion never really settled in with me. So I grew up thinking I was atheist. And during this quarter life crisis, I took up yoga just because I had heard a lot about it, and I was like, I need something. I need anything. My anxiety, if anyone listening has anxiety with the chest pain, I had that all day. It was a lot, and I wasn't sleeping at night. I was so stressed out. I was just so I didn't like it. It was too overbearing for the place I was at with having young kids, you know. And so I took up yoga, thinking maybe this will help me slow down, help my anxiety. And that sent me on a journey that I never expected, with introducing me to mindfulness and meditation and manifestation, you know, intentional manifestation and the laws of the universe and spirituality. And oh my God, there's more to spirituality than religion. I always thought being spiritual or having some sort of spirituality meant, what religion do you abide by? And for me, I was like, you can't put me in a box. I'm going to believe whatever works for me. And if it takes a little bit of that religion, a little bit of this religion, that's me. And now I see, looking back, this is my spirituality. This is me understanding that there's bigger things at play here, that we're not here by coincidence. There's something out there, something. So if at any point I reference universe, just put in place with God, source, guides, whatever resonates with you. But I started to unpack that. What does this mean for me? Why am I here? Does that mean there's an actual purpose to me being here? And then I had a life coach. Always recommend hire a life coach. If you're in that space, you need a life coach. And she was incredible. I still talk to her to this day. She introduced me to this thing called human design, and it gave me this immediate validation. I mean, I was blown away. I was like, how does this system thing know anything about me? But it was everything I had been struggling with feeling like a quitter. As a manifesting generator, you might relate to what I'm about to say. I was trying to figure my life out. And so I'd take on new projects, or I'd start a new business or do whatever. And then I'd get bored, or it wasn't the right fit and I'd want to move on. And people would be hard on me for that. Oh, you're starting another new business? Oh, what? You can't be happy with what you already have? And this system was just like, no, you're designed to start something new, like love the challenge, learn it, maybe teach it, move on from it. That's who I am. And that sent me down this spiral of, oh, what is this? What does this mean for me? And then over the years, it's just transformed into me teaching it, because other people were leaning on me, asking, how did you come out of that place? And oh, now you're using it for your business. How do you use it for your business? And human design has just, it's changed me in ways that I can't explain. And now I see everything through a whole different light, honestly. And it's changed my relationship with my kids, with my husband, because now I understand how to communicate with each of them. Of course, all three of my kids have different designs, lucky me. So I have to learn how to communicate with each of them individually. But it went from being just this really cool tool that I can use to understand myself better, to learning to embody it, and I can actually say at this moment in time, I'm in such complete alignment for the first time that I've been in a very long time, that I'm literally winning things left and right, like contests. I'm getting booked for things that have been on my manifesting list for like ever. And this is what happens when you're really embodying that energetic alignment within you, is that magnetism that comes in. So it's been really cool to experiment with and to witness for myself. But that was the gist of my journey.
Great version. I think that had a lot of meat to it. Good choice. So, I, in talking about yes, I can relate to that, being really great at starting up and switching gears and needing to switch, and also trying to stick with something a really long time, and then that really leading to the burnout
Yeah.
and leading to all sorts of health and emotional challenges, because I've been there a few times for sure in the past. And to explain to people who have no idea what we're talking about with human design, um, I came introduced to it a couple of years ago, and two different people had brought it to my attention within a handful of months. So, when that happens, then I perk up to something when it happens a second or a third time. So then I looked into it a bit more, similar to you with a coach at that time. And then I've learned more along the way. My first explanation, or just to kind of put this in a box that people will understand at least, is think of it as archetypes, but very, very complex. But I mean, in the most simplistic way, it's so if you've ever heard of different types of archetypes and all different facets, whether they be spiritual related or not, it's a framework. This is my opinion, at least. And just to give a very initial rudimentary that just pops in my head when you were talking, I thought we need to break this down, but I'm sure you have a much better explanation. Um, but for me, combining it with other types of things like numerology and understanding my life path and all these things, it it's all very like it all has been synchronistic. It all
Mhm.
of these different types of models and frameworks for me, when I found out what I fit into in each one, correlate with the other very much.
Yeah.
And so all of the each of them separately and then multiple together for me have been validating, have been freeing, and have given me a little permission slip to be okay with who I am.
I
So,
love that you just said that. That's one of the biggest things that I like to put out there is I'm not here to put human design and pressure it on anyone, because if this doesn't resonate with you, there's another tool out there that will give you the same answers, like numerology. I spoke with your numerologist. My
oh,
mind is blown.
great.
It literally said the same exact thing
See?
that my human design tells me in different ways. It was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, she's referring to Felicia Bender, who I've had on the show a couple times now. So you can go check out those prior episodes if you want in the archives. But so tell me a little bit more, my really, the dumbed down description I just gave. Why don't you give the more correct, more accurate, more expanded description of what the heck human design is?
I love that you think that was a dumbed down version, because when I try and dumb it down, I'm like, take the Enneagram and astrology and it had a baby. Like,
Oh,
think of it like that.
okay.
But it's, yeah, I mean, personality types never resonated with me. I think because it was so like ebbs and flows and then puts you in a box. I don't know. Um, but human design is it's based on astrology, but there's also the Kabbalah, the I Ching, the chakra system, quantum mechanics that are all at play within your human design. And it's used to reveal your genetic design, also called your energetic blueprint sometimes, and shows you where and how to access your body's consciousness as a decision making tool. So ultimately, how you can live as your true self. If you think about it, everything, every single day is a decision that you're making. From the moment you wake up to the moment your head hits the pillow at night, you're making decisions. So being able to make decisions that are in alignment for you, that are right for you and your path here in this lifetime, every decision is going to lead you on that path. And knowing how to access the correct decision for you is what the main idea behind human design is.
Okay, great. I love that explanation. So, when you think about, let's give them an example too, or there's the different, how many core types are there? The,
There's five. I mean, there's four, but there's the generator and a manifesting generator, so technically five.
okay, so 5 core types. We happen to be the same one. And then within those, then there's nuances. Like when I said I'm a 4-6 and you're a 4-6, that's a
Mhm,
number at the beginning that makes it to however many options of each one there are. And then there's different pieces beyond that with all the gates and
mhm,
it goes very in depth. If we show, I forgot to pull up to show the chart, but it's funky looking chart with these shapes and colors and different pathways and things. And it's really interesting to delve into and
mhm.
can be, I think, it's not something that you can easily look into and research on your, in my opinion, in my experience. It's not simple to just research on your own and get a sense of it. Like you need to work with someone and or watch a lot about your specific things, come to understand it. It's a complex model for sure.
Yes.
That
And I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to be forever learning as well, because it's so incredibly unique. There's no way you can possibly understand everything about everyone on the planet, about every design possible. It would just it's I don't want to say limitless, but there's a lot that goes into it. Yeah.
So talk about the key, maybe the key five types, just really brief to give a little overview.
Yes. So the first I love to talk about is the manifester. And they're only about 9% of the population. They are someone who is very much here to initiate things, to get things started. They're very known to be connected to source. They have these downloads and inspiration, which everyone can have. So don't take that as only manifestors can, but they just have all of these creative ideas and they tend to be very go go go. So that can sometimes show up in their life as everyone else is slow. They get a little impatient because they're already on the next page and wanting to get on to the next thing. But even though they're really great at going and getting something, they're not always the best at completing something. So manifestors are great starters, great initiators. So the generator types are very much where the general 9 to 5 hustle grind culture comes from. They are the people who really can put their heads down and work, especially if it's something that they love to do. So pure generators are about 37% of the population. And they're here to put in that workforce energy, that life force energy, and when they're feeling really excited about what they are doing, they could work all day long. If not, this is when they get what their not self theme is, which is essentially what it sounds like. If you're out of alignment, doing things that you're kind of following the wrong path, is frustration. It's a very typical feeling for generators and manifesting generators. And so when you're feeling that frustration, it's that red flag of saying, hey, we're doing something that's not really in alignment for us. How can we move away from this and get back into doing work that lights us up? And that's not just in regards to work, but then there's the manifesting generator, about 33% of the population. It is a generator type, so all of the above also pertains to manifesting generators, but they also have that manifester in them. So they have that ability to start things and pull them through to completion. Now, it doesn't, although they can appear very superhuman at times, it doesn't all, it's not all perfect. It's not like everyone wants to be a manifesting generator. A lot of times, because we're trying to do so much, we jump around, we skip things, we miss things, and we have to go back and fix what we messed up. And we really have to learn to slow down. That's the biggest piece for manifesting generators, but we thrive when we have a lot going on. I mean, myself as a manifesting generator, I wake up at 5:25, I go to the gym for my 6 a.m. class, I come back, we get the kids ready, and then we get them off to school or with the nanny, and then I work, and then at night we're doing dinner. But I also could be going out for an event because I'm also a speaker. So if I'm speaking somewhere, I go out, and if we get drinks after or do whatever after, and then I come home and then I settle in with my husband, and that's not exhausting to me. I love that, but that is not for everyone. And then we have projectors, which are about 20% of the population. They have this beautiful ability to lead and guide and direct people, directing them in a way of what to do, or directing them in being able to hone in on what it is they need help with and really bring efficiency and systems and tweaking whatever it is they need help with. Projectors are really, really good at that. So they're like, if you're on a movie set, they're like the director. You go here, you go there. Okay, this needs to be done better. That's what they're really, really gold in. And then we have reflectors, which are only about 1% of the population. And they are considered lunar beings, lunar like the moon. So they ebb and flow a lot with the cycles of the moon. They're all open, which, if you dive into anything on my website, you'll learn more about the open centers. But it means that they take in everything around them and they mirror back to their environment, to us, what the general health and stability of the environment is. So they're like a giant mirror, just like a critic. If you want to go back to the movie idea, they're like the critic of the movie. Okay, well, this is where we're struggling. This is, this is where we could use some work and some help. So they're really unique beings in that sense. Only about 1%. I've met, I want to say, 3 in my entire life, and they are just really great at helping you figure out what needs to be worked on.
And how can people find out what they are?
Oh, yeah. We should have said that. Yeah. Right on my website, they can download their chart. So adrianakeefe.com/get your chart. And that way you'll be able to follow along with everything we're saying.
Good. So if you want to go do that and then back up and re-listen to get your little summary, then feel free. Okay. And then if we want to dive in and give them a little bit more taste of like a chart, do you have mine in front of you as a
I
printout
do.
or as a PDF or something?
Yes. I have it on my other
Per-
screen.
Perfect. Okay. Um, so talk about like the fact that we're both 4/6. Oh, and when you described like you're a day that you love, like part of that I could relate to, and part of it made me tired too. So just to share with everyone that it doesn't necessarily mean that each of the people, I mean, like anything in life, and like any of these, uh, it doesn't mean that we're all going to be perfectly identical and the same things will
Hmm.
light each of us up. That's
Yeah,
actually the whole point, is that we are, in my understanding and opinion of all of these different ways of looking at everything, is we're each unique and we need to figure out what lights us up. And so
exactly.
even though you and I have maybe the same method to determine that when we listen in a certain way and respond in a certain way, then we can find that easier. What lights you up will be different possibly than what lights me up. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so talk about that with you and I need to respond. And what does that even mean? And how does it fit in that we get to manifest at the same time?
Yeah. So, generators and manifesting generators, you have a strategy of, and the strategy means this is how you interact with the world around you. And our strategy is responding, which is literally that. It makes you want to think it's more complicated, but all it is paying attention to what you can say yes or no to. We have a defined sacral center, which, if anyone, layman's terms, is the gut. I had a gut reaction, or I knew with my gut. My gut told me this was the wrong choice for me. So we have a gut reaction that's either a yes or a no. I do firmly believe there's an in between. And for me, I think that in between is a yes, but not right now. So I always kind of table that for later. And we tend to be very vocal with that. So you're responding to things in your environment, whatever comes to you, and the universe is asking you to say yes or no. With our vocal sounds, we tend to go or ugh, or like something really using those sounds. And if you don't say it out loud, it's like you can hear it in your head. I know you can, because that's what we all like naturally do. And so that's what you want to follow instead of forcing things all the time. That's the biggest trap we can fall into with being so desiring to work, desiring to stay busy and be productive. We fall into that trap of, okay, what can I push through now? But we can really get much further faster when we slow down and we simply wait and respond, which is really hard because patience is not our forte, but just responding to what comes to us. So if you were to say, hey, do you want to come and do this collaboration on a workshop? If I'm like, oh, I'm like, ooh, that lit me up right then and there. Oh, yeah, that sounds like I'm in. But if someone was like, hey, let's go out to dinner tonight at 8 p.m., I'd be like, ugh, I don't want to do 8 p.m. I'm in my pajamas by then. Like, I don't want to do that. And before that response, that comes before the thinking. Well, if I do that, then I'll be able to see this person, or, oh, I haven't seen them in such a long time. If I don't go, they're going to think I'm ignoring them. And going through that thought process is what we want to get out of. We want to be in tune with the body. So responding with that sacral is a big key to success for the generator types.
Super. And then and the 4/6, what is that in the beginning of our
So the profile lines, whenever you hear the numbers like a 2-5 or a 4-6, that's in regards to your profile line. And your profile is essentially your personality as you're walking through this life. This is how you show up, how other people are seeing you, and how you see yourself. So the line 4, the first number is conscious. So this is something you're going to be aware of. When I say it, you're most likely like, oh, yeah, that's me. And the second line is subconscious. It's called your design. And this is something that you might have learned over time, or you might still not be able to see about yourself, or maybe other people see it about you and say it when you're not in the room. So the line 4 is called the opportunist. And this is someone who is very well connected, has a large social network, and they find the majority of their opportunities through their network. They're someone who has a real gift in their analysis of others. And I really think that we were designed that way because we had to be so well connected that we want to make sure that we know who we're talking to. And we have this almost like psychic ability to be able to read a person from the moment we start talking to them. And then the 6 is called the role model. And they have a very interesting life with 3 phases here. The first about 30 years of their life can be really rough and rocky. There can be a lot of struggle, a lot of, at times for some people, trauma, big T or little t trauma. And then after age 30, about 30 to 50 or so, is when they really begin to disengage from that trauma and they start their inward journey. Why did this happen to me? What am I here to do? What does this mean for me? What can I learn from this? And then about age 50 and on is when they really seem to step into that role model phase. How can I take all of this and re-engage with life, with what I know? And they're known as the role model because they're very visionary industry leader types. They're very they call them on the roof people. So they're up there, they're teaching and guiding from afar. They're not so much in there one-to-one, but being the role model who shows people what life is like and what you can evolve to through your own evolution.
So, for anybody who's known me for a long time, who's listening or who follows me, you know, shocker, right? I mean, all of that I relate to very, very, very much. And then if we look at the thirds and the years you just mentioned, I mean, very much. The accident was when I was 19. My really stepping into my healing journey. I got into therapy and stuff in my 20s, but really stepping into it was mid 30s. And then
Mhm.
here I am, 47, going to be 48 in the fall. And so and really diving into this business in the last few years in my mid 40s, getting into the 50s. So it's like very much. And like
Yeah.
you mentioned numerology before too, I'm an 11-2 life path in numerology. And so it very much correlates with that too. That the some of the breakdown in the life and the numbers and the kind of the third model I recall from learning about that as well. So, okay. Then if you look at the chart, what other interesting tidbits, can you tell us about me to just give people a little insight?
Yeah, you have the Genius Freak channel, which
That's a
is
fun
really
title.
have you
This is
heard
new
have
for
you heard
me.
of it?
No. No, I have barely, to be honest, barely scratched the surface, I think, in understanding my human
Oh,
design. So this is fun. Okay. Genius.
this is
So
a
I'm a
fun
genius
one.
freak. Okay. What does that mean?
Yes, yes. So you have, if anyone's familiar with the crown center in chakra system, we have the ajna center, and then you have the defined throat center, which is what makes you a manifesting generator. And you have these two gates. Gates are personality traits that show up for you. So if they're lit up on your chart, that means that this is activated in you. You have this trait. And then when you have one at either end of center to center, this is kind of difficult when I'm not like showing the image, but does that make sense? When you have one at either end,
We can
one on
bring it
one
up.
center,
Should
one
I
on
bring it?
another.
Should I bring it up?
Oh, that's up. I mean, that's up to you. A lot of people will probably be listening anyway, right?
Yeah, that's
Not
true.
watching.
That's true. Okay.
Um,
You know what I'll do is yeah, you'll, what I advise is that you go to Adriana's website, get your own chart, and then you'll start to understand this a little bit and then learn
yeah.
a little bit from what she has to offer. Because I mean, even looking at mine, it's going to be very confusing. If I actually, to be honest, if I thought it would help you understand it, I would go pull it up right now, but I'm really not sure. So let's just carry on.
Yeah.
Don't want to
Yeah.
overwhelm anyone, but I'm just
It's a
saying
lot.
if you want to get into this, I highly recommend a guide like Adriana. So, but continue so you can get the
Yes.
fun little insights and just, you know, for fun. Okay.
Yeah, someone out there might also have the Genius Freak channel. So you have your ajna connects to your throat center by two gates, the gate 43 and the gate 23. And when they're connecting, they're passing energy back and forth. And so they form like a new energy. And the 4323 is nicknamed the Genius Freak channel because you're someone who's always, your thoughts are always one step ahead. Like you are someone who's often able to see something new that others don't. And honestly, it's a channel. It's a channel that I've always kind of wanted to have. I remember the first time I heard it, it was of someone who was really successful for doing something very visionary, industry leader like. And oh, that makes sense. You have the Genius Freak channel, and I was like, oh my god, do I have that? And I didn't. And I was so bummed. But you have that. um,
Is
yeah,
I'm
you're
guessing, is there a
very
downside to that though? Because it, the always, I feel like when I hear that, I think of a challenge that I face constantly.
uh-huh.
So go ahead, dive in, and then I'll confirm.
So I never want to say downside because I don't believe
Yeah.
that there's any really good or really bad
Thanks.
chart.
Good.
But
Great correction. Great correction.
there are shadow sides of everything. You know, how am I showing up in this? Am I showing up in alignment or am I showing up in the shadow of this? And it can definitely look different for each person, but the genius freak is someone who often, because they're so one step ahead, they can throw off and rattle off these ideas sometimes so quickly that it's not really something people can understand. Patience and communication are something that they can really work on so that they don't just sound like a madman with like delusional things coming out of their mouth. Again, because a lot of people don't understand them and don't understand that they're one step ahead, that can be something you can fall into. Yeah.
And I would say also too, there's a tendency to always want to jump further. Like I tend to want to jump from A to Z. I tend to want to jump a few
Hmm.
letters, like because I can see the end goal, but if I can't get there fast enough, it's very frustrating. And then if I feel frustrated, then that's not good because that's my not self, and
Yeah.
it then it counters. And then if you mentioned law of attraction, some of the, all of that stuff, I can start putting up resistance and go against myself. So just because I can see where things could go, where what's next and
Hmm.
what's coming, then because it can't happen in the timing that I would like it to, just because I thought it and I can see it, then ironically, I think I can get in my own way of making it happen.
Hmm. 1,000%. And we can all definitely get in our own way
Oh,
of
yeah.
making
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, for sure. Um, and what's interesting to point out is although we're both manifesting generators and we both have the same profile lines on that level, we have very different charts. You have open centers where I have defined centers. And so this just really shows how completely unique each chart really is. I mean, it makes sense where you were saying earlier that a lot of what I was saying would exhaust you in my day because you also have an open solar plexus, which means you literally are an empath. You can literally feel people's emotions and pains and feelings in the sense that I'm an empath in the way that I feel deeply and I feel emotion for the person. But people with an open solar plexus can actually feel what the other person is feeling. Do you feel like that resonates with you?
Oh, very much. Very much. And if somebody close to me is going through a challenging time or a challenging day or something, it can it can knock me off easily.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then I feel like something's going on with me and I have to check myself and clear and do a meditation or just shake it off or have some separation for a bit or whatever. It's yes, very much. Very
Yeah, so it
much.
makes sense that a day like mine could exhaust you more on some level because
Mhm.
you're literally taking in everyone else's emotions and energies in that regard. Um, And then you also had a few activated gates in the head center, which I don't have. And they're very much people who really like to look at things philosophically and questioning life and the studying of why we're here and what does all of this mean, and if a tree falls in the woods does it make a sound, and you're like, well, I mean, right, like I really want to know the answer to that. And like that's the kind of gates that I see in you. Do you feel like that's how you are?
Oh, very much, very much. And yeah, I mean, at the same time, I booked within days of booking you, I booked neurosurgeon Dr. Eben Alexander, New York Times bestselling author of Proof of Heaven. which is about his near-death experience and basically an experience that proved to himself what's going on, that went against what he'd brought up with his um, truly read, more in the box scientific, certain type of scientific
Mhm.
leanings. Um,
Oh, I
but
know who you're talking about.
yeah, this book,
Oh, I just heard him on something, I think. Ooh, I
yes.
gotta okay, now
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have to
yeah.
read
So yeah, these
that.
both of you I'm interviewing within days of each other. We'll see when these all episodes drop. So this will either be right before or right after this one. And
That's awesome.
yes, very exciting. But it's right in a, I mean, it just shows you I was totally
Mhm,
pulled to that. I went with a girlfriend to hear him speak locally, never heard of him before,
mhm.
enthralled, so impressed with how much he knew that I couldn't even retain. It's like when my husband, who's a science guy, starts talking about all the science stuff, it's like my brain gloss. I can't retain the facts and the data that he's sharing and
Yeah.
the amazing stuff
Mhm,
about the new quantum mechanics discovery and the scientists and the this and the that. I can't seem to absorb it. And yet I'm
mhm,
fascinated by the concept. And then when and then what I really got out of Dr. Alexander's experience is that bigger why and that bigger what's going on and that bigger comfort that he feels of all is well and
mhm,
trust me, and um the and I'm fascinated by the fact that he and many others have found proof. They can argue there's scientific proof that there's more going on than we understand, proof that there is a that universal consciousness, um if you want to say God, like whatever word you want to say, it's not necessarily a person God. It's that, but this bigger consciousness, this bigger thing that we're connected to. So anyway, and look at me go. I'm just like fired up
mhm.
talking about this. So yes,
Right. See,
very
and like
much.
that interests me very much, but then if I think about it too much, I feel like I melt down and I don't want to think anymore. Whereas
Yeah.
you are just like, "Oh no, let's dive into this.
Yeah.
Let's uncover all this," you know? So it's different in that way. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Um,
Mm.
and any other little random tidbits that jump out at you?
Let's see. Let's see. Um,
So I'm open in my head too,
mhm.
right? Which is kind
Open
of
head,
in
yes.
alignment with the 11 to life path as well, which 11 is very much kind of antenna, like literally bringing in satellite dish of
Mhm.
ideas and stuff. It's very much uh, in that realm as I understand it. A
Yep.
lot of ideas, a lot of stuff, and having to then uh, sort them out so that I don't kind of drive myself batty, feeling like I've got to accomplish all of the
Mhm.
things that come into my mind. And just because I have the thought doesn't mean that I have to then turn on the generator aspect and take it to the finish
Yes.
line. But that is the challenge. I mean, the amount of notes I have, like I use
Mhm.
Asana for project management, and now I have a board going that's it's just a list with, if I get a content idea or social media idea, the list, I will
Me too.
never be able to, like, I don't, to be honest, the only reason I do it is to try to get it out of my head. The
Yes.
reality is
Right.
when I go to record a podcast or do something, I usually have some other thing that's come to top of mind. But so it's kind of like I'm fooling myself in one sense that I think I'm going to come back to these things. And yet if I don't do them justice and put them somewhere, I feel like I haven't taken care of them,
Yep.
and or
And
I
it
feel like I
plagues
haven't,
you.
yeah, yeah, it's either like I haven't done the idea justice, and or it spins too much and I can't set it down because it's like a spinning top in there, and then there's another one and then there's another one and then another one.
Mhm.
So that's what I have resorted to doing, is just get the stuff out and slotted somewhere and organized in some list somewhere that I also know is unlikely that I'm actually ever going to go back to, which is
But you never know. It could be 2
right.
years from now. You're like, "Wait, I have an idea for that."
Right. And that makes me feel better to have that.
Yes,
So,
exactly. I do the same thing. That's my "Ooh, but not right now." That's where I table it for later so I can just let it go. Yeah.
and you know how that shows up for me is I get the thought, wait, wait.
Mm.
That's the ooh, not right, maybe yes, not right now. That's the thought I get, is just wait. Like it's not even a clear yes,
Mhm.
maybe, not right now. It's just a wait. You're not ready to say yes or no on this. That's what I feel. I agree with you that there's a third.
I was just going to ask you if you felt you were an intuitive person and if that showed up for you in one specific way, your intuition, that is. It sounds like your intuition does show up for you and you feel connected to it. And it sounds like a thought in your head. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, I would say it's like I'll have a feeling, a knowing, a message that's
Hmm.
short and sweet and quiet, very quiet. And it'll come up like trying to decide whether or not to let go of something that I was involved in. The message
Mm.
came up in two words: get out. It was just, but it was calm. It wasn't like, get out, save
Get
me. It was,
out.
it wasn't like that. It was just like, get out. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah. And it felt 100% right. Or like I said, a message of just kind of just wait, or just a feeling of like, oh, that sounds like fun, or just kind of like I light up, I kind of feel my posture and everything kind of sparkle a little and go upright,
Hmm.
versus my no is a kind of a I feel it in my body. I'll get exhausted really fast and I'll feel overwhelmed, and I kind of
Yes.
like tuck in and like bad posture and kind of round my back. Like that's kind of how the yes and no shows up for me, is a little bit in how I literally how I feel in my body, of like a little energized spark, or oh, that's exhausting.
Hmm. And you've really learned to trust that, which is probably the hardest part is trusting that intuition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is I trust it most of the time, and part of it is the settling myself if I get to spinning with all the thoughts, or the wanting to do or wanting to finish or trying to finish, and then settling back. That when you nailed it with the busy, and a lot of the audience listening are most likely manifesting generators or generators, I'm just going to be willing to guess, because they're the ones that are going to be a tendency to have the
Statistically.
busy. Yeah, statistically it's a huge portion of the population. Plus, with the things I talk about, you're most likely going to fall in the category of tending to get yourself too busy and tending to need to figure out how to slow yourself down, settle yourself, and recharge, and find that inner balance. So for me, it is a continuing journey of being able to slow down and what I found though over the years, especially in the recent years, in my 40s, mid to late 40s now, is that my body won't let me try to do that overdrive stuff. It literally will stop me in my tracks. Yesterday, midday, I was like, Charis, you got to go take a nap. Like it was so I like I knew that I would just stare at anything I would try to do or work on.
Yeah.
And I
Been
laid down.
there.
I had trouble going to sleep for a while because my mind was spinning. But then I don't remember if I listened to something or I just got quiet and was able to. But I even laid there and was just told myself, you know what? It's okay if you don't go to sleep. I could tell I was already feeling better just from laying down and just attempting to quiet
Resting.
it. Just attempting
Yeah.
and just taking a little time out. And I have needed to do that more and more and more the last few years, like a lot more.
Hmm. Your body speaks to you. It's just a matter of understanding the language. And that, like we were saying, it can come to you through different modalities and tools, through human design, through your intuition. I asked you about your intuition because you have a defined spleen, which means that you have a consistent instinctual knowing that tends to show up for you. And then you also have quite a few gates lit up off of the spleen, which tell me that you're likely very in tune with your intuition. Like, you've learned over the years what it comes through as. It shows up for you when you need it to, and it just kind of naturally has been happening for you. So that makes sense for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Well, See, people, see how fun and interesting this is?
It is, because once I start to dive into a chart, it's like I can really start to get to know the person. Or if I see the chart of someone I already know, I'm like, well, that's like my husband. I'm like, well, that's your problem there, Tim. We need to we need to work on that. Terrible. Don't recommend that.
No, I did pull Don's, and I think he's a generator,
Yeah.
and then I saw some of the, yeah, the we had some similar open, I can't remember now, but we had some similar open centers and some things different. So yeah, it's interesting. It's fun. Well,
It is.
I yeah, the what was there anything that you were surprised to learn about yourself when you dove into this? Or was
Good.
it all pretty
Oh, yes.
confirming?
It's funny. I was about to say I don't know, and then my intuition was like, you know, my line four, my line four, man. Because I first learned it's well connected, large social network, yada yada yada. And I was like, well, that's wrong. Like I'm an extrovert in the groups that I know. Other than that, very introverted. Didn't really have like a large social network. And I was like, well, that's all wrong. That's not right at all. And after working through this for some time, I started to really work through my subconscious through hypnosis, journaling, etc. It's a lot of work, and I recognized that all of that was me quieting myself, because over the years I had constantly been told I was too much. I was too loud energy. My laugh was too big. I wanted too much attention. And I also, what I'm about to say is a trigger warning. So for anyone we might want to skip ahead a couple minutes. This is a trigger on sexual abuse. I was abused as a child. And when I sought help, I wasn't believed. I was, basically just told to sit down and shut up. So that manifested over the years as me thinking, there's no way I'm going to go to that networking event. There's no way I'm going to go show up as my true self and try to make friends and say hi to someone whose energy I really likes, because they won't like me. I'll be too annoying. I'll be too much, too whatever. So I'd learned that I actually really do love having a big social network. I love networking events. I love meeting new people. I love calling up a friend just to chat in the middle of the day for no reason. And the way that I was unfortunately conditioned in that was what was holding me back. So this is, I mean, that's a real deep example of what you can work through with your human design and with anything like this. But that was the first surprise for me. I was like, that's not me. And then I learned it really is me. I thrive like that. I thrive in that environment, but I was just dulling myself down the majority of my life.
I'm so happy to hear that you came to know that about yourself so that you could find a way to embrace it and not just make it
Yeah.
all bad. And
Yeah.
um that number 4 and what you talked about with that, I think it's interesting when you said that for for you to understand how that relates to you, and then for me similarly to understand, well, because of the empathic aspect and how I can attract it. It's just that it's not that I don't ever want to be in networking things. It's, for me, it has to be bite sized, or if I'm going to
Hmm.
go all in, I've got to plan extra days around to like
Yep.
like
Decompress.
yeah,
Yeah.
separate and all of those things. Max of like one in-person thing in a week, and maybe one a month, maybe two. It's
Yep.
really interesting in that way. But again, I think that a key message here for everyone is figuring out, learning. I don't really love the phrase figuring out, but it's really just learning who you are and what makes you tick, and
Yeah.
what lights you up and what depletes you, and do more of the stuff that lights you up and less of what depletes you. And human design is one way that you can learn more about yourself and navigate those waters with this system and kind of understanding of how you operate.
Yeah. I like to say coming home to you, to who
Oh, I
you're
love that.
authentically born to be.
and remembering who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be
Beautiful.
surprised at what you feel like that's not me. And then when you lean into it and you uncover an old memory or something, it gets weird, man, when you're when you're in that kind of work. But it's good surprising.
Well, I so appreciate you diving in to give us the overview of human design today and also diving in to look at some of my chart. That's super fun and I highly recommend people go check out theirs. Again, give them your website and again where they can go get their chart.
Yeah, adrianakeefe.com with one N / get your chart. And I have, once you download your chart right there, I have a free workshop you can watch. There's also a downloadable guide if you'd prefer just a handwritten guide versus the entire workshop. And then I have the podcast, the No BS Human Design podcast, for anyone who just wants to dabble in what human design is and what it means to them.
And I'll put both of those links in the show notes too. If you want to just click below, you can do that. And then I always love to close each episode with a quote, and Adriana is going to share one of her favorite quotes here. So, is this one by you or by someone else?
No, this is one that's by someone else who has since passed,
Okay.
but I've taken it with me since probably my mid-20s, my personal into my professional life. It's for all of the above, and it is, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Jim Rohn. I've seen that play out in my personal life as well as with business. They say your network is your net worth, kind of on the same lines, but also in your personal life, if you're hanging around with people who are constantly complaining about their husbands or their jobs or their wives or their kids or whatever it is, it's not the energy that's going to bring you further. If you're listening to a podcast like this, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you want to better yourself, and hanging around people who bring you down, that's not going to help you get up, I guess.
I agree with that. And one way you can start doing that if you're not ready to change some of the relationships in your life, because that can be a big jump and kind of be scary for some people, is to listen to more things like this. Follow more people,
Mm-hmm.
find people that spark you, give you that feeling that this would be helpful for you. And the books, the curating your social media feeds, all of that stuff, to
Yes.
to unfollow or and stop seeing. You don't have to unfriend, but you can stop seeing the stuff from people that annoy you and or have the vibe or are going the direction that you don't want to go, or staying stagnant where you don't want to be in a certain area of their life,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. And that's something that I have found to be really helpful too. Is
Yes.
it doesn't have to be people we actually are living with,
Mm-hmm.
or see every week. The kind of thinking about those five, you can also think of it as bundling in who you're letting influence you and who's coming across your screen, and who's coming in your ears.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, the majority of my mentors, I don't even know in real life. They don't
Right.
know they're my mentor, but they are.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Everyone, go check out your human design, see what it does for you. And thank you again for being here, Adriana.
Thank you so much.